Just think about it, John, my wife Jenny pleaded. We don't have to go all the way. We can just find someone and have a bit of a fling. I'm not sure about that at all, Jenny, I muttered back, nervously slicking my hair back. It's a bit of a shock. I had no idea you were so unhappy with our sex life. It's not that at all, she sighed, looking at me sympathetically. You're just wonderful in bed, but I feel like we need some variety. You mean you need some variety, Jenny, I clarified. What you're suggesting is a little one-sided. Do you feel the need for another woman, John? My wife asked, knowing that I had told her the night before that she was the only woman I wanted. You know I don't, I dutifully confirmed. And you were really turned on by that video we watched last night, she continued. 2 guys with 1 woman seems to be your thing. Well, I guess it is, I admitted, but the women in the video weren't my wives for the last 10 years, were they? No, but one of the men was her husband, Jenny remarked with a smile. That was the whole point, wasn't it? You said yourself how it turned him on when he had to watch the other bloke undress and have his wife in front of him. I guess so, sweetheart, I reluctantly agreed, to be honest, a little more reluctant than I actually was. Where did you even find a video like that? Look, John, she continued, ignoring my question. The fact that I watched that video last night and the fact that Meg at work told me about this guy today, it seems not just a coincidence, but like it was meant to be. Why don't we do it, honey? Of course it was a coincidence, Jenny, I muttered. Sure, it was more than a coincidence, or at least a very convenient coincidence. I didn't want to play my hand too eagerly, but truth be told, the whole thing was rather appealing to me. Strange, do you think? No, not really, but I was going to try to agree, even if I had to feign reluctance. Shall I ring him, love? Jenny demanded, and the smile I'd always loved so much lit up her pretty face. I have his number. What's his name? I asked, playing for time. Mike, she replied, and her smile turned into a smirk. And what's he like? I told you I don't really know, she replied cheerfully. Only that he's good-looking and apparently a stallion. She was lying, of course, but that didn't change anything, and it was time for me to drop my objections and let events unfold in the direction I really wanted them to. With a shrug of my shoulders and a long sigh, I actually gave my wife permission to schedule an appointment to meet Mike the Stud. It was an event I was looking forward to with some excitement, though I didn't want her to know about it. Thank you, honey, she squealed enthusiastically, rushing over to me to shower me with kisses and stroke her big breasts. I'm sure you'll love it. Well, I certainly did now, didn't I? The call was duly made, and it must be said out of my hearing, and a date was arranged for the following night. The idea was to meet the bastard in a pub we don't normally go to and see how Jenny and him get on. If they did well, and there was a slim chance they would, we'd go back to our house to have a bit of a romp, and the idea of starting off with just confusing sex was apparently safely forgotten. So there we sat, sipping our first drinks and nervously waiting for this guy, Mike, to show up. Nervous for all sorts of reasons, but all too aware of how things could go wrong and what a disaster this could all turn out to be. Are you sure this is a good thing? I asked. We're already here, honey, she replied. We can wait and see what he's all about. Right, I agreed and took another sip of my beer, trying to calm my nervousness. I wonder if he's the one who just walked in, Jenny whispered. Whispered to me. Jenny pointed to a large, well-built, good-looking, dark-haired guy who was walking in our direction, looking around the bar as if looking for someone. Jenny? John? He dropped the question, looking or perhaps feigning uncertainty. Yes, you must be Mike, my wife replied, not that it bothered me. Nice to meet you, John, he greeted me, extending his hand, which I readily accepted. Your wife is even more beautiful than I expected. Nimble bastard. Complimenting a woman but directing it at her husband, eh? Neat bastard. I smirked back and muttered my agreement, while Jenny panted and happily accepted his simple kiss on the cheek. Drinks were bought, Details exchanged. Mike was careful not to touch Jenny too closely, but still did, each time he touched her, making her squirm and giggle. If the situation had been different, I would have become jealous and worried long ago, as these two were recognizing each other, leaving me sitting there feeling distinctly left out. They didn't play this scene out too well and could have easily ruined the mood if they hadn't attracted me first. However, shall we take Mike back to our place then? Jenny directed her question at me after half an hour or so. Another shrug, another sigh, and soon we were out of the pub and heading towards the car park, the three of us, hand in hand, with her in the middle. Maybe I should get in Mike's car to show him the way, came the quite expected suggestion. Okay, I agreed with another sigh and left them to it, pondering how much they'd have time to do in the 10-minute drive home. 10 minutes for me, although it took them 20 for some reason, with no explanation offered, nor were they asked. Having excused myself to the kitchen to make the obligatory coffee, I returned to find that they had started without me, with Jenny sitting on his lap and his hands going into her jumper. Soon the jumper was gone, and Jenny's bra was on the floor beside them. "This is getting too fast," I objected, but of course I was ignored. "Come on, Jenny. Mike." "I'm getting uncomfortable," I added already more insistently. "Do you want to join me?" Jenny asked, not looking too interested, but at least making an offer. "No, I'm fine," I muttered, feeling my stomach flip. "I'll just sit here and observe for now." The bitch didn't even answer me, just smirked and went back to business, while I found it increasingly difficult not to stand up and tear them apart. "Oh my God, what gorgeous breasts you have. How does that zip work? I love your hairy breasts. Careful not to rip my knickers." And so it went on. Each comment, each giggle, each grunt and sigh like stab wounds in my chest, testing my judgment and making me question the sanity of my actions. I'd had enough and couldn't take it anymore, and neither of them even noticed when I stood up and silently slipped out of the room, leaving them alone. They hadn't even finished their coffee. Oh yeah, I doubt either of them noticed me slipping my camera phone back into my pocket. "Do you think this will suit Gordon?" I asked my legal eagle the next day, grinning from ear to ear as the two of us sat looking at the photos and videos I'd taken the night before. "Perfect, John," he laughed back, never taking his eyes off the screen and clearly enjoying this aspect of his work. "How did you manage to get those shots?" "A bit of luck and a little bit of trickery," I informed him eagerly. "We have a detailed investigator's report on the affair the two of them have been having for the past 6 months, but he wasn't able to get any pictures. And with those, along with his report, the case would be a bust, and any judge would give you pretty much everything you wanted out of a divorce. It's also a good thing that investigator overheard that bastard talking Jenny into humiliating me by making me watch, or I wouldn't have had time to prepare. I'll get the papers ready, and John will hand them to her tomorrow." He concluded our business, and I walked out of his office a much happier man. A much happier man indeed.